So one of the challenges that we'll face in a project such as this is our patients who are really demotivated really to make any change. And so we want to get specific to insulin titration, but our patients may really be very lackluster about their approach to this. So we'll put this into that sort of red light, no category, and the sort of motivational issues. And so I'd just like to briefly describe how we approach this scenario. And it requires really through the lens of readiness. And when we talk about readiness, I think it's important to recognize that, readiness is a state. It's a state that fluctuates over time. And you can see in the video that if this kayaker were to look behind him, he's probably going to be super motivated to paddle really quickly. And so the purpose of doing a readiness assessment is, importantly, it's consistent with self-management support and the relationship between the patient and the provider that's characterized by collaboration and empowerment. In other words, the readiness assessment is not to tell you the end, but the beginning. So it doesn't matter where your patient is. What matters is that you and your patient have some idea of where they are so you can move them forward. And this becomes a big challenge because often what happens is that we providers are looking to get to behavior, but if the patient's not ready, if they're not motivated, they're not going to get to behavior. So this is where the concept of readiness assessment becomes really very important. And with a readiness assessment, I'd like you just to consider, what are you actually assessing readiness for? So what is the behavior you're defining? And then as you get a sense of what you're actually asking the patient to do, then you consider readiness. And the readiness assessment should be structured and transparent. And what I mean by that is that there should be a form to it so that it's actually a structured interview and that you're doing the same sort of thing with every patient. But it also should be very transparent. In other words, share what you're doing with your patient. So the readiness assessment that we really like to use is called the traffic light assessment, and it kind of goes like this. And you can see in red here, we're actually collaborating through this. We're trying to actually be transparent. So we say, ask our patients, is it okay with you, or do I have your permission to do something called a readiness assessment? Get a response. Typically, it will be okay, and then you would elaborate. I'll ask you 4 questions in order and then give you feedback at the end of the 4 questions. We will have a discussion at the end about your readiness. So you're really letting the patient know. Then you ask them, do you consider X a problem? Are you bothered by it? Are you interested in changing? Are you ready to change now? The first question, do you consider it a problem, is designed to tap into the awareness piece. To what extent does the patient own the fact that their current behavior is not healthy? Or are they rationalizing their current behavior away? Are they distressed by their current behavior? That's that limbic system activity. Are they interested in changing? There's a goal-oriented question. And are they prepared to change now, which is an action-focused question. And then using this, we go back to our readiness algorithm. And now, doesn't this sound so repetitive? And remember, when it comes to supporting change, our job is to be descriptive and repetitive. Our patient is to become understanding and, importantly, collaborative. So here in this model, you can see if the person is ready, they go right into behavior modification strategies. Ambivalence is about exploring pros and cons, linking to personal meaning. That is, let's imagine somebody who isn't adjusting their insulin with hyperglycemia, who finds that they're pretty groggy in the evening, but they have a 10-year-old child. You could ask them, or you could explore with them, whether they would find it valuable if they had more energy to be available for their children in the evening. That is, doing homework, or providing opportunity for fun activities, or just being less irritable with the children. Well, you can see there is a relationship between improved glucose control and energy. And so there may well be ways of linking the behaviors of diabetes management to personal, meaningful reasons to the patient. And so you can see in this model, there is a line towards the ready piece here. And that's just an illustration to us that we don't forget about the behavior, but we kind of would only be tentative about it. So I sometimes think about it like trying something on, right? You might try it on to see if it fits and what you think about it, but you're not committing to buy it yet. Red lights, again, take the expectation of change off the table, and the intervention itself is really to keep the conversation going. You're maintaining that relationship. Gives you the opportunity, which we find to be quite important, to understand the individual's behavior, particularly from its personal meaning, as well as beliefs around seriousness, personal responsibility, controllability, and optimism. And I always try to remind myself that the following statement really applies to diabetes, and that is the more work a person living with diabetes unwillingly does to manage their disease, the lower their quality of life. And it's true that the more work a person living with diabetes willingly does to manage their diabetes, the higher their quality of life. So it appears that quality of life in diabetes is not related to the work, but the reasons why you're doing the work. And that's why it's really important we find that the relationship between the patient and the provider, as long as the provider is not being controlling and judgmental, can really explore these beliefs. And so this purpose of this brief video is to really provide you some support for kind of beginning to open up that box of sort of the demotivated patient. Thank you.